Thanks very much indeed. So now moving on to item 11, which is the Vbase Limited equity injection for the town hall costs. So Len, welcome to the table. Just noting Tim's conflict here. Any remarks on this report, please?
This is a technical paper putting in the mechanism in place in which to enact the decisions previously made by council of topping up those costs for the town hall to Vbase. That's purely and simply what this is.
Yeah, and I think that's entirely the point. This report is about the mechanism to deal with the issue that was outstanding from previous decision making, a matter that was the result of previous decision making.
This ensures that Vbase can pay back council the $12 million.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sam.
I just wondered if someone could clarify why the mechanism wasn't agreed when the additional funding was approved.
The committee requested the council, the staff to come back with a list of the projects that would generate savings. So there was a reason for not doing it at that point in time, because they had to come back with those savings, and therefore only after those savings were we going to do this, put this in place.
But we didn't agree at the time that it would be an equity conversion.
Correct. Yeah.
We didn't. Okay. So why didn't we? Do you know?
We didn't know much.
No, I'm not talking about the value, but the mechanism for doing it.
We'd already topped up $45 million worth of project costs, and this came in later on. And we had to find savings to be able to do it. That's basically the deal. The way we inject the money coming in is purely by looking for within our capital program rather than new money. The council really no new money going into it, so it had to come from our existing capital base.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
It doesn't really answer Sam's question. Sam's question is, why didn't we consider a mechanism at the time? And I don't recall the answer to that, but it was better to wait for this final report. One, the amount was going to be different. We didn't actually know whether we would require the 15 million, and we didn't know where the savings would be found. So it's just a tidy up mechanism. That's all it is.
And certainly from memory, that was well acknowledged at the time. It was always known that a report such as this would come in front of us in due course, which would be the way of addressing the savings required, or would be a mechanism to address the issue. So this really is, as has been said, the tidy up of an outstanding matter, a mechanism for resolving an outstanding matter which was acknowledged at the time, and it was always known that there would be some solution for the matter. This is what's in front of us today.
Yes, what I'm trying to understand though is for those of us that weren't here at the time, there hasn't been a binding approach to how we do this. So I'm just trying to understand why we didn't look at potentially, instead of propping it up again or putting them in an equity, looking at finding operational savings and just writing it off. So I'm just trying to understand why we didn't consider that approach at all.
Maybe staff can comment. It's quite possible that approach was considered.
Yeah, the key thing is that it was straight away after the $45 million injection, they decided that the costs were going to go up. They were still value engineering the town hall to ensure that we got the best possible price for what we did. So there could have been an inclusion in that paper that, yes, we would have done the equity injection, but we would never known how much. This tells us we need 12 million, not 1, 2, 3 or 4, 5.
And so just one other question, if that's okay. I'm just trying to understand the defect period. So is this issues with the contractor, or is this scope work that we've basically mucked up at the time?
No, there are various contractors provided us with contracts. The CSO is the last big piece of work, and the CSO defects period goes to September 21.
Okay, so would some of this cost not fall back on those who have done the work if we're in a defects period?
Oh, yes, they will, but there's amount of money that's coming back to us to complete that work, and a lot of this is going to be project management of those defect period. And so the new waste store is a piece of work which was included late in the piece, and therefore once that's complete, that will have a defect period. So that's why there's a project management. There's a project management element of this tail, which is what we have to do, and that's the smallest piece of the work of this money.
So these extra costs are additional work; they're not issues with the building.
Correct, they're not issues with the building. There's a piece of it's just the waste store is a new piece of work, and things, and the Ferrier fountain is still part of that work. that's got to be fixed
So
up.
how did we get the scope? And I don't know how do we get the scope? So, and it's probably not a question for you. At the time, this just seems extraordinary.
Yeah, Diane, you might want to make some comment on this. I mean, it may well be that there's a need to refer some of these questions back to the previous reporting in the previous term of council.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the questions you're asking, Sam, really relate to how we arrived at the position that we're in, rather than the mechanism for solving the issue that we've ended up with. But certainly there was a lot of documentation at the time, many previous reports. Diane, do you have any comment on this?
I can't talk to the scope, but I agree we should ask for a report back on the scope. But to answer your other question about why we didn't consider savings, it's because this is part of the capital cost of the town hall and therefore should be funded through equity. It is not an operational cost as other amounts we've considered with Vbase. So looking for operational savings would not have been the appropriate treatment to handle the cost.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand though why we would, if we blow a scope out or change scope, I accept there's a capital portion to it, but why didn't we make, and that comes back to that mechanism at the start when we approved the additional money. Why didn't we consider cutting our cloth somewhere else? It just seems strange to me.
I'm sorry, we'd have to get the engineers here who considered it at the time, and while one of them was here earlier, he's left, so
Yeah, okay.
I think we'll bring it. There will need to be a final closeout report,
Yeah.
and I think we can consider it
Yeah.
as part of that.
Okay.
I think that's probably where a lot of your questions will be able to be answered, would be in a closeout report for this project.
Cool.
And I think it would be entirely appropriate that we bring that as soon as we're able to.
At the December 18 meeting of council, basically this became such an important issue that the team were requested to report monthly back on the town hall, covering these matters, exactly what we're talking about today. What we're doing now is just fixing up that $12 million.
So what will be crucial, because this is one of those things in the closeout report, I am sure there will be a very large lessons learnt section in this, and we need to be really clear about what they are and ensuring that they're embedded in the organisation going forward. I'm sure a lot of them will have probably already been put in,
Yeah, we'll all look
but
forward
I'd
to
like
reading
the
that
clarity.
report.
Yep.
Yes, I'm sure.
All right, thank you, James.
Yeah, unfortunately for Sam, not a lot of those staff are still around that you could ask. But as far as this paper goes, it proposes a 12 mil equity injection. There's 9.8 of debt owing by Vbase. So that leaves about 2.2 mil for the waste storage and remedial work on the fountain. My question is, what incentive is there for the remaining 2.2 million to not be exhausted? And if that money isn't fully spent, does that get returned to council or does that sit on Vbase's balance sheet?
This proposal is up to 12 million. So we'll be receiving 9.8 on the table today, and we're going to have project costs for the completion of the waste collection area and the project management costs during the defect period. That has been given to me as concrete numbers. If we only need 11, we'll only do 11. If we need 10.8, we'll do 10.8.
So what, you essentially purchase the shares or inject the equity upon receiving the receipts?
Correct. Yeah.
So it gives basically a cheque or a limit up to $12 million worth of equity injection dependent on what's
We
spent.
believe we won't need the 12.
Okay, so then that brings me back to the first question, and what incentive is there then for savings, I guess, to be found from throughout that process if there's up to 12 million there?
I don't think that's a question for you.
Yeah, I can't answer that from the capital team's point of view, but they'll be working on that. And all I'll know is what will come in front of me.
So following on from Sam's though, there's probably more incentive there if you eat the debt or you write it off, essentially, then you've got, and you find those, and I appreciate the capitals, but if you find, for example, the savings via capital channels, you've got an incentive there because everything that you're writing off has got an equal and opposite effect somewhere else on the balance sheet. So keeping it, following it through a debt write-off process, it would seem to me tight is a good word. It essentially keeps the incentive to minimise cost blowouts or exhausting funds, because otherwise you've essentially just got not a blank cheque, but a cheque there up to a certain quantum.
Yeah, I mean that's why we went back to the project managers and the capital team to say, what are the projects you still have to complete, and how much is that tail going to cost us? And so therefore, when that came through, we challenged the team on that. We asked them twice to make sure that that's what's going to be the case. there should be no additional overruns, there should be no additional projects. Anything else that comes in will just be thing. And any of that surplus money will stay within the capital program. So that's how that will work. It's not as if, you know, those we've taken 12 out of the program and not. It actually will, if it reverts back September 21, that's where it will happen. It'll just come back into that capital pool at that point in time.
Okay, thanks, Len.
All right, thank you. Yanni?
How much external fundraising did we get in the end? Do we know? Like, was the Christchurch Foundation or?
Let's go with the capital program on that one. To the best of my knowledge, very little.
Right.
Again, this is the opportunity for questions on this mechanism. There'll be
Well, I just
other-
thought if we were getting if we had like some money coming in from that external fundraising, then I thought, well, we might not need, you know, and I appreciate you've said it's up to 12 million, but we've got a pretty detailed summary of where other money is coming from, but we just have complete silence on that external fundraising. So
Understood.
I thought it was pretty relevant. The other question I had was, did we consider CCHL actually putting the equity in rather than council? And if so, why would they not do it? Or if not, why not?
CCHL. We're the sole shareholder. Council's the sole shareholder in Vbase.
It's not a CCHL company.
CCHL does not own any shares in Vbase.
Yeah. But previously it used to, didn't it?
No. Council has always owned Vbase directly.
Right, it reported to CCHL.
No.
CCHL monitors it and runs
monitors
the
it.
director
There was a
appointments
relationship.
process.
So I mean, I just
shareholder
wondered
is
whether,
council.
and you know, I have raised this previously with the whole Vbase restructure and everything that's happening around whether you could put it into the group of companies to offset the losses that it's making. So, I mean, I don't know when we get that information back, but
Again, that's a different matter than, I mean, there will be some further conversation about Vbase and structure and so on in due course, and that certainly would be the right time to be talking about any tax advantages, organisational
right.
advantages,
But the key
that
thing
sort of
for
thing.
this is we didn't.
Vbase is a member of the council's tax group, not accounting and consolidated. It's part of the consolidated group, but as part of the tax matters are concerned, Vbase, CCHL are all part of the tax group. It all makes no difference.
All right, thank you. Any further questions on this? Aaron?
It's only a small one. It's under number 6, and it says strategic alignment. This report does not support the council's long-term plan. Why is that the wording?
What's the question? Why doesn't it support the
It just
long-term
said,
plan?
yeah. It says it does
This
not
is
support
not in the long-term plan.
Oh,
The
right.
Vbase injection is not in the capital program is in the, this is the template we operate under, and so therefore effectively it's, you know.
Right, it just the wording just seems odd. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
No, I'm sorry, it's actually how you describe it. So 6.1 should have explained why it doesn't meet the council's long-term plan objectives, because it's not part of the capital programme.
It's not part
Yeah.
of the long-term
Yeah.
plan, yeah.
Rather than just,
It's just
it's not a template issue, it's the words that are put in.
Yeah, whereas it does, you know, it is consistent with the council's plans and policies, but this does not support the council's long-term plan.
Yeah.
So that's what it should have said.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. Okay. Can I have a mover for these recommendations? All right, well, I'll move the recommendations. Can I have a seconder? Leanne will second. Is there any debate? I'll put the motion. Oh, James.
Yeah, very quickly. Look, I won't support it. It won't surprise anyone that there's a slight element which is the matter of principle, and I'm torn because this problem needs a solution, and I do appreciate that. But this is just the gift that keeps on giving. You know, it was originally a $127 million budget, which then had a $45 million equity injection. Now this is another equity injection of up to $12 million. It is what it is, and look, let's be honest, it's a fabulous facility. It's just that the process wasn't a good one. And that being said, though, my preference is a tighter approach when the fact of the matter is everything has a cost associated with it. And yes, you can keep buying shares or issuing shares and injecting equity into it. But there still is a cost to that, and yes, you can borrow it, but the ratepayer is still picking up the tab. So my view is keep it tighter. There is a cost associated with it, and my preference would be to simply write off the $9.8 million, which is the amount owing today, and then pay for it via capital savings. I think that keeps it tight. It means the accountability sits in this unit, and you're not continuing to issue shares. So I just think it's a tighter approach.
Thank you, Sam.
I mean, I tend to agree with Jamie and just signal that I'd foreshadow if this was to fail, a motion to the effect, and we can work on the wording around writing off the receivable. I'll do that for, I guess, two reasons. Largely, I think, this has continued to blow out, but I think secondly, I wasn't here at the time that we approved the additional budget, and from my point of view, I think there needs to be a mechanism in place. There should have been a mechanism in place agreed at the time on how we would do this. The fact that there's not, and the fact that we could go up to 12 million, I think we need to be far more disciplined as an organisation, so I'd much rather see it written off, acknowledging there is an impact on that and that we find operational savings. I think we need to get to a point where we just stop borrowing for the sake of it, and we need to drive far more discipline through the place. So I won't support it like this, but if this was to fail, we'll just signal that I'm happy to put up a motion to the effect of writing off the receivable.
Yep, thank you. Leanne.
I think there would be a high risk in going down an alternative track to this one. Council staff have looked at all of the options. One, do nothing, continue to record a receivable for the cost to be reimbursed by Vbase, less than desirable from a financial reporting standpoint, and a provision for doubtful debts would need to be applied to the outstanding balance as it is unlikely to be paid. Write off the receivable, which is the proposal. For an alternative resolution, Council may choose to recognise that Vbase cannot meet the reimbursement commitment and write off the receivable balance of $9.8 million along with any future expenditure on Town Hall repair and restoration project. This would have a significant impact on rates. So without any discussion around that, I think that would be irresponsible. Partial equity injection and partial write-off, also substantial impact on rates, but would be less than a full write-off. Lend Vbase the money, and they already have loans in relation to a number of other matters. I think that the option that has been put in front of us, although the situation is not an ideal situation because of how we got there, this is an ideal proposal for the Council to consider, and indeed for resolving this particular part of the matter. And can I just say that although this particular project suffered from extremely poor project governance and management structures, and partway through the process, a council team was put in to take the place of what was there before. So it is agreed that how we got into this situation is something that we never ever want to see happen in this council again, but that the council did pick it up and step in such a way as to minimise the future damage that would have been occurred if that project management structure had been allowed to continue. So it wasn't, there weren't adequate controls, it was very poor controls, poor project governance, poor management structures. That is specifically called out in this paper, and this project is the reason that we now have the closeout reports. So we are going to get a closeout report on this, and that will enable us to understand in real detail about all of the whys and wherefores, and we will be able to make sure that this never ever happens again. That being said, Town Hall is extraordinary. I went to the leaders' debate last night. It is the best venue. It was a live venue because we're at level 1, and it was the best debate that I have ever seen. I thought both performed extraordinarily well, and I know that the venue and the people that were in it actually made it happen the way that it did. So, and I think democracy is well served by that. So the Town Hall's a really good project.
Thank you. I was going to comment, but I don't actually see the need to do so now. So, yeah, thank you very much indeed. We will... No further debate? Yanni, thank you.
I just wanted to just reference the staff advice, is that the option that the staff have recommended has the least impact on rates. The options that people have foreshadowed will have a significant impact on rates. So I just wanted to make that point because I just think we need to be really clear. I mean, none of us wanted to be in this position, but we are in this position. Ironically, Vbase is actually suffering from having to still pay off the loan from the last redevelopment of a stadium for a Rugby World Cup. And we had the earthquake, which has put us in a really, obviously, an extraordinary situation. So let's not forget, one of the drivers behind why Vbase is unable to incur the costs is because they're still paying off the loan for the last time we redeveloped Lancaster Park for the Rugby World Cup. So, you know, I think there'll be a lot of lessons that we can learn from this, and particularly with the new stadium that we're building. Let's make sure that we do learn those lessons. But today's really about trying to find the most cost-effective way to address the shortfall, and I think staff option is the one that does that rather than what's been signalled.
You've spoken once already. So
Well, if you want to do that, then I'll move an amendment, so I can either way, or you could just...
You can't move an amendment.
Well, can I correct... I didn't want to do a point of order, because what the foreshadowed motion is actually explain something that Yanni said, which was...
Well, do you want to put forward a foreshadowed motion with wording?
He can't, he's spoken.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, do you want to know what people are voting for or against?
We were just
Oh, you're
trying to
making other
clarify.
decisions.
Hang on,
Town
hang
hall
on.
take two.
We were just trying to clarify for Yanni
Do you
that
want
a
to
dollar is
clarify?
a dollar
This
regardless.
is why you end up in the situation that you do.
Yeah.
Because you don't listen.
We tend to just borrow for the sake of borrowing. A dollar is still a dollar.
If you were... Okay.
The two are obviously
I suspect that this is going to
Can I
carry
have
when
10 seconds to say
I
where
suspect that this is
why
going to
it
carry
doesn't?
when I put it.
As indicated.
So in terms of the foreshadowed
In
motion...
terms of the foreshadowed motion, it wouldn't have the impact on rates because what's being proposed is a
No,
foreshadowed
no, no. The
motion.
foreshadowed motion...
Point of order, Mr Chairman.
Is it-
There is a foreshadowed motion. The person that's seeking to put another
Foreshadowed motion is actually, has already spoken in the debate.
Yes.
And you don't get a second bite at the
Yep.
cherry.
All right.
So you don't want to know how...
The
Who
foreshadowed...
cares? It's just ratepayer money.
The foreshadowed motion was, it's clear what it is, we understand what it is, people when they vote know that that foreshadowed motion is there and it's capable of being debated if and when we get to it. The time for that debate is not now. Does anybody else wish to speak to the motion that's on the table? Phil?
This we're not borrowing the $12 million. We are borrowing the $12 million, so that's why the rates will go up.
Is that a question?
If I was asking that as
Is
a
this
debate
debate
question,
or is this a question? We're in debate.
yeah, that would be my point if I was debating. But I'm just all right. No. Oh, yeah.
Sarah?
Confused.
I didn't actually have my hand up, but I... yeah. So, no, I mean, there's one thing to wanting to keep things tidy, but when it comes to the advice on rates, I think the advice is really clear. And I'm sure that staff won't have gone through that very lightly. There is a difference in the way that sometimes things appear on the book and to how things might perceive, and, you know, people might think that they should be one way, but they're actually not when it comes to the processes and things that council have to go by. Yes, tidy would be nice, but actually lower rates would be even better.
Okay, so I note the comments in the report. I note the comments from staff. I note the matters that have been raised in debate. This seems to me to be an entirely sensible way of closing out an outstanding matter. This is about a mechanism. This isn't the opportunity to relitigate or re-debate the issues that got us to the point that we've got to. There will be some lessons to be learned from this project. There will be a closeout report which will come to this committee, and there will be plenty of opportunity to debate that report, and also to consider what recommendations might come out of it and to learn from the report at that time. And I don't doubt that a number of the matters that have been raised today will be raised in much more detail in that report and the associated debate at that time. But for now, I'll put this motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against?
No.
That's carried.
Can I call
So
a
those
division for that,
against
please?
a division, yes,
Yeah,
we will
thanks.
take a division.
Councillor Templeton. Aye. Councillor McClellan. Aye. Councillor McDonald.
No.
Councillor Johansson. Yes. Councillor Galloway. Yes. Councillor Daniels.
Aye.
Councillor Coker.
Yes.
Councillor Cheatham.
Yes.
The Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Major.
No.
Councillor Kewen.
No.
Councillor Goff.
No.
Councillor Davidson.
Aye.
Councillor Chu.
No.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
It's 10 in favour, 5 against.
10 in favour, 5 against, so that's carried.